are things like making sure your audio-video connections are assigned correctly, making sure your control connections are assigned correctly. So that's going to be your IR, your relays, your contacts. We haven't really dealt with relays and contacts a lot yet, but we will be getting into those. And then if you know those are there, then it's a question of networking. Do I have my devices identified correctly? For the ones that I had to manually enter the IP address, is that assigned correctly? Is my Zigbee network running? So if you follow those steps initially, that'll get you through a lot of the basic troubleshooting areas that you need to focus on. Okay? So, questions there? There's a little bit of material that I want to cover today that I was thinking we'd have to move to tomorrow, but ended up not taking as long. So we're going to focus in then for the rest of the day here in the media section. Now the media section of Composer allows you to go in and make things like channel lists or scan your music and have cover art. Now what would happen though if I scanned in, let's say a flash drive, and I didn't have cover art for it? What could I do? Yeah, you can go look for it yourself. So there's one of two ways to do that. Now to get into the cover art, you can highlight it and click edit, or you can double click on it and it all does the same thing. I think the easiest way to do it is to click on this search button. Now it's going to go out and, assuming I have an internet connection, it'll find for me anything related to the artist and the album. Typically pulls in cover art, pulls in information. I want to make sure the track number is correct. I do that. Now sometimes it gives me a bad piece of information like that. It's supposed to be an apostrophe. But I can always go back and fix it manually right here. Then click OK. And then of the options that you see right here, the first one says that it's just going to edit and change it in Composer. If you choose the second option, and I think that's the better of the two, that's going to write the information back to the tagging as well. But maybe your customer is very particular, and they don't want you fixing any of their MP3s because they have certain cover art they want with it. Again, I can't see that as being the scenario, but if it is, you would want to just choose the first option rather than the second, because that will write it back to the MP3. And if you can't find the cover art using that search function, it's very easy to find it and bring it in. If I just did, let's say, Van Halen. Go to the images. Wait for my computer to run faster. And then I can just right click, copy it to the clipboard. What's that?
You're using Chrome.
I probably just need to reboot my computer. It's been like a week.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
Yeah, it sucks. What do you mean? And now I've got that there, I can fix that. So lots of ways that you can make changes. And if you understand how to make a change for your MP3s, it's exactly the same for your movies. But let me show it to you while we're here. Control4, for liability purposes, decided that, hey, we're not going to make a media server because we don't want to go through the litigation of having to deal with, do we have the copyright for that? So we said, you know what, we're not going to store any of the media, but we'll give you the ability to access those types of drives. So if you bought a NAS drive, you had an eSATA drive, we have the ability to stream from those devices, but you also have to have another device that will decode the video signal. Lots of companies make them. We used to make them, but not anymore. But still lots of them still utilize.
Your media server doesn't do
The,
They don't.
we don't make we used to make something called a media player, and the media player wasn't a storage device, it was a decoder.
Correct.
We don't manufacture that anymore. So. Not enough demand, strangely. But I guess I can kind of understand because, you know, gaming consoles can do those exact same functions. So if I have a PS3 or an Xbox, it does the same thing. And as a video game. But in any case, all we're doing when we have those types of files is we're saying, okay, well, where is it stored? We can go scan those devices and then say, if it's tagged, assuming the type of file that we've written has tagging, it'll pull that information in, and there it is. And if it doesn't, we can make the exact same types of modifications that we just did with MP3s. Search through the Greystone database based on the name of the movie, or go out to the internet, find the cover art we want, paste it from our clipboard. Very easy to do.
So do you have a player on the system?
We do. So we've got a
Fusion?
Buffalo NAS drive that's storing our video, and then we're just using, we have a Fusion, which also has some of the music or videos, but we also have a media player, the Control4 branded one. So depending on where it's stored, that's what we use. Now Fusion is a little bit different in that if you're configuring a hard drive with the Fusion, you have to do it from their software rather
You
than.
have to buy a license for that.
Yeah, because that's how they're able to avoid litigation. So. All right. But as I said, if you know how to make modifications to MP3s, you pretty much know how to do it for everything, because modification is almost exactly the same regardless. The only difference here is that if I have a NAS drive, unlike a USB hard drive or an eSATA drive, those are plug and play. A NAS drive, we have to say, well, what's the location of the NAS drive? So that does require you to bring in a piece of software and then point to the location of wherever that share happens to be.
So that's tied into the receiver, the receiver then?
No, this one isn't. This is just, I mean, think of it as if I was on my PC and I had said, there is a shared hard drive on this network. Here is the URL for that shared hard drive. That's all that we've entered in right here and then connected.
Well, no, I see that. I just saw on the design tree that it shows that it's populated underneath that.
But it's not actually underneath it. See,
Oh, no, I see, yeah, the receiver's got its own tree, gotcha.
yeah.
So can I plug a hard drive in like into the back of the 800 and use it to distribute to all the other controllers in the project?
Yes, if it's a USB hard drive, you could distribute music digitally to
Right.
any other controller or speaker point. If it was an eSATA, it would do the same thing for music or video. It's only scanning it. So there you would have to make sure that the controller's connection was connected to a network port that was also connected to whatever you're going to be decoding from. I know that can get a little bit more complex, so it doesn't quite make sense to you there. You just have to think that we're not hosting anything. What we're doing is, when we're not decoding anything from our controller either, we're just saying it's on a hard drive, we'll allow it to pass through our device on its network. Okay, other questions there? Channel lists, let's talk about these and then I'll give you guys a chance to kind of tinker around with it. Channel lists are pretty straightforward as well. Now, for everyone US based, you can always just search based on your zip code. So that sucks for Tyler. But even if I manually create the channels, I can always back these up after the fact so I can make my own channel list and then use it on subsequent projects. So what I'd recommend for you, Tyler, there is, when you make your Rogers list, you make your, that's the only Canadian cable company. Shaw. Just make it once, and then you're good to go. And it shouldn't be comprehensive. Keep in mind that your control UI isn't going to tell you what's playing on that channel. So having a comprehensive list of channels isn't going to be as useful as, say, having your customers' favorites. But as far as making them, the only information you need is the name, the channel, and the cover art. You don't need the description. That's not used, nor is the genre. And once you have those created,
That's kind of cool. Do we audio music in an audio only one?
yeah, and so that will only show up under the listen menu instead of under the watch menu channels. But you can see what I've got right here. And these are smart enough that the system knows when you select it, if you've made your connections, what devices it needs to turn on, what inputs it needs to switch, and it will also issue a channel change command. But as I said, this might be kind of a limited list. I probably normally do more than this, but I would try to keep my list to around 50. If your customer is having to sift through all of these icons to select their channel with a bunch of channels that they don't ever look at, like they're not ever going to go to the home shopping network. Maybe your customer will. I would just limit it to the channels that you would select, even if you weren't aware of what was playing on it at any given moment. All right, so let's play around with these ones a little bit. This starts on page 7 of your activities.